Hey, welcome everyone to the Men's Sexual Mastery Podcast. This is your host, Ian Hawks, and your other host, Ben Timby.
What's up, y'all?
We are joined today by the lovely Dr. Aspen Percival. Dr. Aspen is a naturopathic doctor. She's a yoga teacher. She is my lover, my partner. And Aspen, would love to turn it over to you to give us a little introduction about yourself.
Yeah, hi, thank you. Lovely to be here with both of you. Like Ian said, I'm a licensed naturopathic doctor in Kelowna, British Columbia here. I also teach yoga, host women's circles, and am co-founder of a business called V-Metrics, the Health Creation Lab. So pretty much an all-around vitality enthusiast, I like to call myself. And a specialty that really aligns with the men's sexual mastery work in my work is my work with women in abdominal massage and integrative pelvic care. So I'm well versed in the pelvis of a woman and the workings there. And I'm happy to be here to kind of connect the dots between the feminine, masculine, and the rhythms in between. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for being here, Aspen. There is so much that we could dive into in this bigger realm of sexuality with you. And I look forward to future conversations where we can start to get into some of those other topics. Because as I was hearing you introduce your pelvic floor work, I'm reminded of, there is actually so much in that realm that we could get into with you as well, and the work that you do externally and internally with women, and the ways that you support and get to be deeply and intimately connected to women moving through many different aspects of their life, sexually or with pregnancy, post-pregnancy, and all the ways that you support women and what we could learn from that. Today, what we were planning to get into and what I'd love to dive into with you is around the menstrual cycle with women. And specifically for a man listening in, I'd love for us to share, for you specifically, Aspen, to share some pieces around the menstrual cycle that will help men understand the rhythms of his partner and the ways that we as men can show up in a supportive role, in an empathetic and understanding and harmonious way to be with our partner during the different rhythms and cycles of her moon. So with that, would you please give us a little just high-level understanding? What is the menstrual cycle? What can we as men know to better understand what our partners and what the women in our lives are going through, the cycles that they move through each month?
Absolutely. Yeah, it could be a really big topic. So we'll kind of break down a few different aspects of it. Mainly there's two rhythms. We have male rhythms are mostly around a 24-hour clock. And so typically, testosterone peaks in the morning and then wanes over the day. That's the main rhythm difference in hormones. Those cortisol rhythms and stress response. And I'm sure you guys have gone more into that. But then when you look at a woman's cycle, it's more of a 28-ish day cycle, tracking mostly with the moon, but cycles can vary anywhere from, say, 24 to 35 days as a full menstrual cycle that's healthy. They can also vary in between that if your woman is dealing with some other concerns or other health conditions that are a little outside the scope of what we'll talk about today. But we probably all know that, women bleed, and that's part of the menstrual cycle. So that first day of bleeding is day one of the cycle. And so bleeding typically lasts for anywhere from 3 to 7 days on average. And so that's the menstrual phase of our cycle. And then there's the follicular. So it's called follicular because a follicle is developing, and by follicle, that follicle turns into an egg. And so for the first half of the cycle, you have the menstrual, the bleed, and then it transitions into follicular, and then into ovulation. which ovulation is actually a pretty short window, but our bodies prepare us to ovulate and prepare that egg for potential fertilization over about a week. And then it shifts into luteal phase. And so that's when the body recognizes, that egg wasn't fertilized and it's preparing to then shed that egg in the next bleed. And so then luteal phase and goes again into the menstrual phase. So you can roughly break it down for simplicity into about a week with each of those phases. That'll keep you somewhere in the ballpark. And you can go into a little more about what each of those phases are. I think that it's easy to relate them to the seasons. And so menstrual phase is like our inner winter. It's that time where if you think about like, what do you like to do in winter? It's like you want to be cozier. You want like more kind of comfort foods or warm foods, stews and soups. You're a little more inward. You're not quite as social. You want to be warm. Those are the pieces that kind of correlate to how a woman feels during her bleed. And then as you go into follicular, it's like your inner spring. And so there's a little bit more of enlivening happening, your woman's starting to come online. She's kind of out of that bleed phase, but starting to plant seeds, a little more energy, wanting to be a little more outwardly social, and then transitions into ovulatory. So ovulatory phase like is around day 10 to 15, somewhere in there, where then that's going to be the phase where she's most outward, most confident, most like feeling desired, wanting outward energy. She's probably most likely to want sex during that time as well. Also the time that she's most fertile. And so we can go into more details on that. And then, so that's correlated with like the summer phase. And so in summer, we tend to spend a lot more time social. We're kind of more want to have that kind of fun kind of party energy, want to be with other people more. That's a time where we're wanting more like fruits or raw foods, and we've got more of a fire in our digestive system where we're able to kind of take on those kind of foods and feel a little lighter. And then we go into past ovulatory into luteal, where it's like our inner fall or inner autumn, where, okay, the energy starts to move downward, you start to draw inward. And it's that phase where you're slowly starting to gather your things. You're getting a little more sensitive. You're storing up so that you can prepare again for that shedding in the winter phase. So that's kind of a high level view of what the menstrual cycle is. You guys have any questions or comments from that point?
I'd love to hop in actually and ask Hawks, how do you interact with Aspen? I mean, it's cool having both of you guys here on the call, having been in a relationship for quite some time and deep in this work. I'd love, Hawks, to hear about how you relate to Aspen cycle and how you adjust how you show up as a man.
Yeah, it's a big topic. There's been a long journey for me of understanding what that looks like through some degrees of trial and error, some degrees of not taking into consideration where Aspen may be at in her cycle, and then realizing, oh, that was a poorly timed proposition or question, or actually getting to understand when I can bring certain ideas, questions, propositions, plans to Aspen, and when it's more likely to be received versus not. So like that's one big thing, understanding that if there's something that is going to require a lot of outward energy from Aspen, if there's something that's a little on the edge of comfort zone, something that she would enjoy in that summer or spring phase, it's not necessarily going to be something that she's going to enjoy or be really open to in winter or fall in that luteal phase. And so that's one big piece. Definitely having more sensitivity to Aspen's sensitivity in the luteal or menstrual phase is just so nice to be able to understand, like, oh, if I'm getting a certain response, or if I can sense that Aspen just feels like a little tender in that moment, to remember, oh yeah, where's she at in her cycle? Oh, okay, that makes sense. Let me just come in here and hold her for a while and propose that we do something really cozy. And that's all just like met so warmly by Aspen. And so I think it's something that has been a dual learning experience, because I get to learn through Aspen's responses what really works and what doesn't. And Aspen's also like can be, you can be strong-willed, and you are really capable of, powering through in certain ways. And so there's also been an element of learning to really like invite you into sitting with an idea and sitting with, plans. Like, is this really right for you? Why don't you take a little bit of time and just check in with yourself? And so also creating the space, because a lot of the time, Aspen, you may be in your bleed or approaching it in luteal, and we have some plans that might be like, yeah, this isn't something that we would normally do, but Aspen really wants to do it, or we want to do it. And it doesn't mean that those plans just don't happen all the time, but making sure that there's space there, and that I've expressed that, hey, if this doesn't feel right for you in your body right now, that's okay. And then giving Aspen the space to feel into that and know that she gets to choose. And then sometimes it goes one way, sometimes it goes the other. And those are a couple of the things that come up for me. I'd love to actually hear from you, Aspen, as well. Same question. What do you notice that I have done, or even like haven't done, that has been, helpful or not helpful in, in honoring your cycle?
Yeah, thank you. I really like you reflecting on the fact that you have been checking in with me more, and like not just honoring my cycle, but giving me space to honor my cycle. And so, like you're speaking to there, like checking in, do you really want to do this thing? Sit with it for a bit. How are you really feeling with that? I feel like that's really given me permission to sink into that and be more aware, because our society does not promote us to be like, hey, we're having an event this weekend. Check if you're in your ovulatory phase and then come. It's like, it's just constantly happening. And whether we're tuned into our rhythm or not, like the life's going to go on. And so I'm not the type of person or practitioner that really thinks that every woman should like organize their life around their cycle, and they like should and shouldn't do certain things really at certain phases. But I do encourage you to really be more present with where you're at, be more aware, and then maybe you go about those things a little differently based on what phase of your cycle you're in. So one thing that I think that we do is when we talk about my cycle quite a bit, and I'm not on hormonal birth control, I never have been, and so I've never had another influence that is kind of dictating my cycle. I know that can shift how your cycle is responding, and that's kind of another realm. We're speaking more to like fully natural cycles, although you can still take this into your toolkit if your woman is otherwise. Talking about it. So, being really aware of like, okay, my bleed's coming in a few days. Like if I notice that like sensitivity in me or irritability, that's like, okay, I notice the irritability or that sensitivity, and I check in like, okay, where am I at in my cycle? And I should let Ian know. Like I should let the people close to me know. Just so they're aware and how I'm responding to things. Because like Ian's saying, I don't think you should take things personally if I respond differently. And also so we're both aware of what's happening. So talking about it a lot, also talking about it like for fertility reasons and like contraceptive reasons, to be like, okay, I'm now entering my fertile phase. Like, be aware of that. Because then I think when you're really talking about it with your partner, it's like, yes, I am in kind of control of my cycle and my autonomy there. But if I'm letting you know, then you can still stay in that like leadership or like polarity there, that you're able to kind of direct situations appropriately based on where I'm at, without me always being like, no, we can't do that, I'm in this cycle, or like informing you you should be more aware, or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I kind of broke the cycle. So technically, the cycle is two phases. It's like that follicular and luteal. So you can kind of divide it into two, like 2 weeks and 2 weeks. And in the first 2 weeks, estrogen is dominant, and so estrogen is kind of like enliven. Like you want to promote her life. And so, like, inviting her into her own creativity and encouragement, and like compliment and outward, like really encouraging her aliveness. And then the progesterone phase, which is the last 2 weeks, where the progesterone is dominant, that's more like protect her energy. And so I feel like just going with those two and being like, okay, how can we support her aliveness? And then how can we protect her energy here is a good basis to start with as well. How does that land?
Yeah, that's a great way to keep it even simpler. And so just to like reiterate that enliven phase is during the follicular phase, which is right from the completion of the bleed up until ovulation. Is that correct?
Yes, it
A little past
technically
ovulation.
starts on day one.
Okay.
Like it can start right from day one. But
Day
in
one
this
being
context,
the first day of the bleed.
yeah, but in this context, let's stick with that. Like the end of the bleed to the end of ovulation.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like day
Even like
5 to 17.
mhm. And so that's this enliven phase. Estrogen is climbing, and there's more of that outward energy. How can I support your aliveness, your energy, your creativity? And then after ovulation, shortly after ovulation, the egg is beginning to shed, and we're in that follicular phase, luteal phase, which is when progesterone is rising, estrogen is then coming back down, and that's how can I protect her energy?
Mm-hmm.
Thinking about bringing in that protector energy as a man to really care and nurture and guard our partner's energy, understanding that she is in a shedding right now. And I want to just take this moment to really speak to the beauty of this cycle and the profundity of it, because I appreciate, Aspen, how you spoke to in that first little introduction to the cycle exactly what's happening in terms of the egg production, the follicle being the root of this follicular phase, and that follicle being this egg that's just presenting itself as a possibility to receive seed, to receive life. And then that luteal phase starting as a result of, okay, this egg, this potential, this incredible potential to create life, to create a human, hasn't been fertilized. But this egg has been held inside, and you didn't speak to this directly, but this egg is being held inside the womb of that woman since she was a fetus. Is that correct? I mean, is it correct to say in the womb? It's
In the
not
ovaries.
in the ovary. Yeah, yes, of course. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that egg has been there since that woman was being grown inside her mother. Is that true?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, our egg origin actually dates back to our maternal grandmother, because there's in my mom's mom, she was an egg inside that ovary of my grandma.
Mm-hmm.
And then as she was being developed, those eggs are developed. So our
Mm.
our maternal line like carries our egg 2 generations back. Actually, there's that DNA information is there for 2 generations, which is incredible.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a really like tangible understanding of ancestral, you know, wounds or ancestral traumas or just ancestral knowledge and information. Is purely in the material, we can see how that goes back at least 2 generations, and much more, as we can get into in some other, energetic or esoteric ways. But to come back to this phenomena of the menstrual cycle and why it's such a beautiful opportunity for us as men to honor the creatrix, the mother of life, in understanding that what each woman is moving through with each of these lunar cycles is the potentiality for life. And then if that egg was not fertilized, then there's the shedding. And this is a finite egg, but there's only so many. Each woman has X number of eggs that she's born with. And each month, one of those eggs presents itself as an opportunity for life. And then if it's not fertilized, then okay, well, now this needs to be cleared out. And that's a process, because there's also all of the other nutrients and fluids surrounding that egg to support it to become a baby. And all of that gets shed each month if that egg wasn't fertilized. And that's a significant process for a body to go through. And so this isn't just, mood swings in women. This is like real biological, profound potential of life, of creation, that works in a cycle and has a real impact on hormones, on physiology, on mental and emotional states. And we can we can honor our partners as men and women, the women in our life, whether we're in romantic partnership with them or not. We can honor the women in our life for that incredible gift that they have to give, which is growing and creating new life for us as a species. We can honor that in just this easy, simple way by understanding the cycles and rhythms, and then learning how to support those women in our life with little simple things, which we shared a few, practical pieces. And there's more that, there's much more that we could go into in terms of the bigger ways, like just to name a couple as well, if you want to go a little bit above the sort of baseline standards, cook your partner some steak. This is something we've done before. If Aspen's, in her bleed, it's like, all right, let's think about how to nourish and nurture the shedding that's happening there. There's blood being shed. Let's get some more iron and like some red meat in the diet, and cook a nice meal, or give a massage. I think we did that just in your luteal or during your bleed of your last cycle, of just understanding like, oh, she's feeling really tender right now. How can I support? And there's ways that we can go, above and beyond as men. And there's a lot of that. I've seen some of that in social media, in kind of like almost comedy sketches of ways that men can like really honor their woman. And if that's done with authenticity and it's genuine, then that's amazing and likely to be very well met. But also as men, understanding like you don't have to do crazy elaborate gestures. Just understand what your partner's going through and take that into consideration.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would love to actually just double click on that for a minute, and coming full circle back into these two phases, just simplifying it into the enliven phase and protect phase, because just for us men to remember our role. So Hawks, you just spoke to the protect phase, like cooking a steak dinner as an example, or being more nurturing, and that's clearly protecting. I'd love to open it up to both of you. What are some other examples of ways, tangibly, that guys could show up to further protect during that shedding phase and the bleed phase, and also speaking to the enlivening? What does that look like?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's most important and probably most appreciated for men to understand that transition into like the protect phase. So being most aware when your woman's moving through that like day 18 to 21. So let's say like day 20 of her cycle, like mark that on your calendar and say, okay, this is where we should start shifting into being softer, being more caring, asking less of her, kind of being more open or giving in your acts of service that way. And then once she's through the bleed and you see her coming back to life, then switching back. I really like also for the 4 phases, it's like, okay, during bleed, like make her feel held. During follicular, make her feel alive, like we've been speaking to. Ovulatory, make her feel wanted or desired. And then luteal, it's like make her feel protected and listened to and cared for. So it's just another little summary. If we come back to more tangible things, I think we see a lot on, the internet being like feed her chocolate and watch movies. Like those are kind of the classic things to do, but really they're like feeding her appetite, because during luteal phase before her bleed, like we need more calories. Our bodies are burning more calories in that phase, and so we'll have an increased desire for carbohydrates. And so making good quality carbohydrate rich, iron rich meals, so good quality grains, soups, stews, nourishing bowls, like those are all really good things to do. So from the food realm, and also like just encouraging her to, eat to her appetite's content. I think that's a great place to start there. And then, warmth is another thing to focus on. And so running baths, hot packs, hot water bottles. What were you thinking?
Well, I just laughed when you said hot packs, because that's something that I've picked up from you. Definitely during that luteal phase, or well, really, it's more coming right into the bleed, as you're starting to actually shed and go through the cramps that can come along with that. But I just laugh because the little thing about Aspen that you can all know now is she just loves to have a hot pack to go to bed with, no matter what time of the month it is. And I slowly started to pick up on that, and just we'll put the hot pack in the microwave, before, as we're getting ready for bed, and just little things like that, especially if it's, during that end of luteal phase, that's going to be especially appreciated. But at any time, just a little gesture like that can go a long way to have that feeling of, like you were speaking to there, Aspen, in that luteal phase, to be seen, to feel seen and heard and held. Or what were those? I know held was part of the bleed, but I want to just speak to that. I'll let you remind us what those words were. But one other thing that I can kind of laugh about a little bit, it's kind of fun and playful, is during that phase, luteal, coming to the end of luteal, there's been times when I can just tell, like, oh, Aspen's like, she's tender right now, and maybe even just a little irritable, and understanding, like, oh yeah, this is where we're at in the cycle. And then I can just playfully be like, oh baby, do you just want to be held? And like, and just bring her in. And it's like, whatever it was that seemed like it was maybe going to start some friction or something, it's like just going up to just be like, oh baby, do you just want to be held? Do you just want to come underneath my sweater right now? And literally just put my sweater over top of her head, and she just wants to be in there held and feel that sense of like safety, and like, yeah. And little things like that can just completely shift an energy of where if a man isn't taking that into consideration, and he's like, oh, why is she being short with me? I don't deserve this. I just got home from work. I've been busting my ass. And then it just turns into an escalating conflict and friction. It's just understanding, like, oh baby, do you want me to hold you right now? And that can just like shift the energy entirely. So yeah.
Absolutely.
And Aspen, you were going to remind us of those kind of words that can help us remember what energy to bring to those different phases.
Yeah, for all 4 of them.
Sure. Or let's just start with luteal and the bleed itself right now, because that's what we were talking about,
Mhm.
and then we could share, a little bit about the enliven phase.
Yeah, for the luteal, it's like you want her to feel seen, feel listened to, and feel secure and
Mm.
protected. It's like really nothing that's going to challenge her questioning of whether you're like her partner there for her really in the relationship. Another aspect that, it's less about what you do in like the physical acts and it's more about like your presence and your demeanor and how you interact with her. The little, acts of kindness are wonderful. And she's probably going to receive them a lot more graciously and be like, oh, wait, thank you. You're so thoughtful. But it's really in the demeanor that's going to say like, oh, wow, this luteal phase up to the bleed went a lot more smoothly this month. There was less friction, less disruption, and it's probably going to be in your noticing and your awareness and your demeanor more than anything. Another thing during that luteal phase, when the bleed's coming, it's usually like our bullshit meter is really low. And so it's like there's a low tolerance for any bullshit. It's like if something that usually she's able to be like, okay, I'm just going to let that slide. In follicular phase, like during luteal, it's like, no, she's going to make it known exactly what her thoughts are on that. And like, the truth is going to come out. It's probably going to come out a little bit more, a little less refined than maybe it should have. But a lot of the time, it's like if something's been stirring or something's been repeatedly happening, and it comes out, then it's like it's not just because she's in that phase. It's usually like there's some truth to what she's acting up about, and so it might be a good time to just mention that, honor that, and then let it sit, and then come back to it again after the bleed.
Mm.
I wouldn't use this as a time to really work through things unless you're both like, yeah, okay, this is really a good time for it. You can kind of schedule bigger talks or more challenging conversations for that, like follicular and ovulatory phase, where not going to have as much of those interfering factors.
Yeah, and I'd love to just actually also echo that, and my own experience learning this from my partner. Shout out Taylor, who's also all about spreading this information, and she's all about this. It's helped so much to factor this in all the time and be tracking it and the awareness of it, and I know it builds so much safety in her, and it's such an act of love and devotion that really does pay huge dividends, like, and that's really just to zoom out for a second for guys listening in, like that's our big why here. It's like, this is actually creating so much more safety and care, and deeper levels of lovemaking in the relationship. So, and just that last piece, yeah, you said, Aspen, like, and I know Hawks, you've reminded me of this in my own relationship. Like when I'm in a rough patch or when you're in a rough patch, we as brothers often will ask each other, where's your partner out in your cycle right now? Oh, she's in luteal or she's menstruating. Like, okay, just a reminder, bro, like hold fast. Like, don't bring that stuff up right now. Wait, she's not herself totally right now, or she's just in a very tender space, as you said, Hawks. And, I come from a sailing background, so I always have the image of like my woman's like the ocean and I'm a sailor. And like every month there's going to be a storm rolling through, and some months they're really big storms and sometimes they're not so bad, but I'm always like stowing things away, strapping things down, adjusting my course, and like ready to meet it in a grounded way, in a present way where I'm not outsourcing my internal state on my partner, because she's really looking for me in those moments to be the rock. So yeah, just wanted to add that in there as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, should we talk a little bit about the enliven phase? I'll just share the first thing that came up for me, and then I'd love to hear from you, Aspen. Making plans, and this is almost a joke because it's something that we've talked about a lot, and we sometimes will make plans. based on the cycle. Some, like, we're facilitating workshops together on occasion. We have one coming up this weekend, and we've learned in the past, like, oh, we planned this workshop, months in advance and picked a date, but we didn't take into consideration where Aspen's going to be in her cycle. And then the day comes along and we're facilitating this 3-hour long workshop, and Aspen, like, is in the depths of her bleed. It's like just the number one day where she would prefer to just be at home, cuddled up, cozy. And we're like, okay, well, we got this, and let's consider this next time. So yeah, planning big things is definitely, like, if you can pull the calendar out and take into consideration, is, is my partner likely to be in her bleed, or, closer to her bleed or closer to ovulation? And just taking that in consideration is one thing that comes up kind of top of mind for that enliven phase. And yeah, love to hear from you, Aspen, what comes up for ways that we as men could support a woman in her follicular or ovulation and in that enliven phase.
Yeah, really helping her stay focused on her purpose. Really encouraging, like, diving in, oh, I've heard you had this idea, like, have you worked on that lately? Or have you, you were talking about doing this, like, have you made plans for that? And just, like, encouraging her to do more of what she's really passionate about and grounded in. It also might be a time to, like, give her some space to work on those projects or dive deeper into her work. To give her a little more space. If she wants to be more outwardly social and, do different events that do or don't involve you. If you've been, like, wanting to do some adventure or, like, trying new things, then that phase is likely better. And then, yeah, like, more sexual activity. Like, she's going to be the most likely to be, like, well lubricated and desiring it, and probably have more spontaneous desire and libido than she will in other phases of the cycle. Although you just need to be careful. If you're not wanting pregnancy, then that's the time to be most cautious about your protection that you use. Yeah, those are the big things that come to mind. Another note is that often in that, like, follicular ovulatory phase, you can be feeling really good and then go make plans. And then those plans come up 2 weeks later, and then you're in your bleed and you're like, oh, well, this didn't really work out. And then you don't want to do those plans when the time comes. So, like, spontaneous plans are good in that follicular ovulatory phase. And then just be mindful when you make the other plans. Yeah. And sometimes it's relevant, sometimes it's not, I think of this one video I saw on Instagram that was, like, a guy in the kitchen, and his like, girl has little shorts on, and he's, like, going in there, like, ready, winding up to, like, slap her on the butt, and he, like, stops partway, and the thought bubble comes up and is like, wait, what phase of her cycle is she in? And it's like, okay, that in, like, ovulatory would have been like, yeah, she'd probably respond well into, like, a spicy, flirty action. But then that in luteal, she's like, no, let's just give her a cuddle. and adjusting your responses or your actions that way. I think it's kind of a funny way to think of that too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a perfect visual. If she's follicular or ovulatory, smack that ass. if she's luteal or in her bleed, take that arm, reach it around, hold her womb.
It's protecting or enlivening her ass.
Yeah. Yeah. I appreciate that you spoke to the sexual pieces there as well, Aspen, for this podcast, Men's Sexual Mastery. We're often encouraging and inviting men, especially, like, in partnerships, to really tune into, like, what is a deep desire that you have sexually? What's something that's a little edgy that maybe you haven't explored before, but that you could bring to your partner to enhance and expand your experience and try something new? Do that in follicular or ovulatory. don't bring some new edgy, if you've never done anal and you want to do anal with your partner, better chance that it's going to be a yes if you time that with her cycle, and just anything along those lines. Anal's just a classic kind of edgy thing, but no matter what it is, if you're trying bondage or something, or going to some sort of a play party where you might be exploring some boundaries with with other people present, or just whatever it is, there's an opportunity that we have to also really consider, like, where's my partner going to be in her cycle? If she's follicular or ovulatory, that's the time to present something that could be a little edgier. It's more likely to be well received.
Yeah, and every woman's different too. So that's why I really encourage, like, this isn't a set formula. Like, talk to her. Sometimes women really love period sex, and it can be really healing also to have a really welcoming, loving response to engaging sexually during your bleed. I know for me, I've had poor experiences in the past, and being with Ian, where he's just been so welcoming and open, and like no fear of a woman's bleed and mine, that's been really healing. And so I think that's a repair piece that can be really, really valuable. And also, some women get really horny like right before their bleed comes. I know that happens for me sometimes. Like right before. And I think there's, some physiology that's like, it encourages like the bleed to come that way, or I don't know what it is. We don't have science on that right now that I'm aware of. But it's like, yeah, that can be something that happens too. And some women just really enjoy it during their bleed, and like, just get to know your woman, and nothing is off the table. You just want to be aware and talk about it and really like learn her rhythms.
Yeah. Thank you for that. That's the perfect piece for us to wrap up with here today. It's communication. Ask your partner. Get to know your partner's cycles and what is really supportive for her in that phase. And that's a great place to wrap it up. And I know we're right at time. Aspen's got a yoga class to scurry off to and teach. So I will pass it over to you, Ben, if there's any last words you want to chime in, and then Aspen, just if there's anything that you'd like to finish with or close with, any other loops to tie up before we sign off.
Yeah. Thank you, Aspen, for coming on. It's an honor to have you here. And yeah, if there's any closing words you got, feel free to drop them here.
Yeah. Your woman has the whole rhythm of Mother Earth within her. It's going to serve you, and getting in touch and healing with your own feminine nature to get in touch with hers. And whether that's your girlfriend, your wife, or it's your mom, or it's your daughter coming into her puberty, like we're more accustomed to the bloodshed and war than we are to the bloodshed of a woman in our society. And I believe that it's really going to empower all of us if we start to shift that and really honor the cycle that we have, because it's truly, truly magical, the original medicine ceremony of the bleed. So thank you guys for highlighting this, and absolutely love and am full support of the work you're doing. If any women or partners are looking for more understanding of their cycles or support with period pain, hormones, anything like that, they can always reach out to me.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Aspen. Such a privilege to have you and your wisdom and your knowledge and experiences shared here. Thanks for being with us. Thanks for being in my life and in our life and supporting the mission. Love you so much, baby.
Love you. Bye.
Okay. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Love you too, Ben. Love you too, listeners.
Love you guys. Love y'all.
Shout out to all the brothers in our cohort. Love you all. Have a blessed day. See you on the next one.